Hi there, welcome back. So today I'm going to go through the freeCodeCamp curriculum. So it's sort of an open source online bootcamp almost. And they've got a lot of certifications and a lot of content that you can go through, and it's absolutely all for free. So they're a non-profit organization in the US. But if you just have an email address, I think you just sign up, log in with an account, and you get access to here over 8,000 tutorials. And they also have a pretty big YouTube channel as well. If I go over here, you can see they've got over 5 million subscribers, and there's some really good content and long courses as well that obviously aren't on their sort of their core product, which is the freeCodeCamp site. So I'll come back to the YouTube sort of pages and other resources that actually I have recommend and I found when I was going through the curriculum. But yeah, I thought I'd just review certainly the first three certifications. So responsive web design, JavaScript algorithms and data structures, and also the front-end development libraries, because these are sort of the three core ones that I ran through when I started Learn to Code. I guess it was back in the summer of 2020 in July. And obviously now I'm working as a junior full stack developer, so I can safely say that all of the content in here is well worth running through if you're a beginner. And a lot of my knowledge, certainly the sort of the basic JavaScript, and then obviously the HTML and CSS, and us learning other points of the responsive web design, that was certainly gained from going through the curriculum here. So yeah, so as I said, if you log in or sort of sign in, you'll get access to the learn page here with all the tutorials. And it's quite nice. They've got little sort of quotes on each page of, sort of programming quotes, I guess. There's some good ones that pop up from time to time. But as I said, their sort of core product are all the certifications. And you kind of start sort of front end HTML and CSS, and they really ease you in with sort of the learning. And then you go on to JavaScript, front end development. So that I think it's React and Redux at the moment. Data visualization with D3. There's some backend and APIs as well. There's a lot of information here, and then also perhaps more scientific computing and Python as well. You can do obviously data analysis, and I believe they're actually doing a full sort of Python sort of certification as well, maybe a separate one. I'm not quite sure. Might have actually be this machine learning, which looks like TensorFlow. And then they've got thousands of hours of coding challenges and interview prep, which I'll be honest I haven't done, but certainly all of this looks really good. And certainly if you want to learn about information security, I would certainly dive into one of these and just see what you can learn basically, because obviously at the end of the day it's all for free. So you're sort of just paying with your time, I guess. They accept donations, and I think they've got a shop and all of that. So I certainly know I'll be donating at some point for sure to give back. But yeah, I think it was really good, the site. And I think if I just click on here on the first one, you can see here we have sort of a what you'll learn page for the certificate. Obviously, it sort of says roughly it's 300 hours. You can kind of spend more or less on them if you fly through. Obviously, sometimes you get stuck, and then you might need extra resources other than what they provide, of course. So they do have a forum as well as sort of hints, and then I think it might even show you sort of solutions if I remember correctly. But yeah, we can perhaps have a look at that. So anyway, if I just click on the first one, you can see a lot of the courses and then broken down further into sort of basic HTML and HTML5 just to start you off. And you're building as you go. So unlike perhaps Codecademy and some other sites where I think they're a little bit more basic, certainly for sort of the beginner projects, as you'll see as we come on down, that might be available on, was it Codecademy Pro? But obviously when I was learning, as I said, my sort of most valuable resource was my time. I was working full time, so I had to cram as much as I could at evenings and weekends. So I just wanted a free course that I could dip in and out of, and obviously wasn't able to do a boot camp at the time. Only had a certain amount of hours in the day. So yeah, I found this site to be really good to come back to, and just tick off. Just go through them slowly. So you can just literally do how to add comments in HTML and how to then comment it out. You can just do a couple of these, however long you've got time for, and then move on to the next section. So yeah, so these are the sections that you've got. So HTML, we've got CSS here, and then it's quite good. They do visual design and accessibility really early on. So you're sort of learning about typography, color theory, graphics, animation. as well as accessibility, which of course is really important to learn. And maybe a lot of junior developers, you might sort of gloss over that, or maybe you're trying to learn HTML and CSS and then move straight to JavaScript, and you're going to perhaps miss some of this stuff, which is really important in web development, specifically. Um, and they've got some design principles, and then of course you're learning sort of flexbox and grid, which I use sort of every day now, if it's a personal project or at work. But a lot of CSS, sort of perhaps more advanced, and then we've got these web design projects as well, which are really quite good, because you get to actually build. You sort of start with a blank page or a code pen, and you're building a tribute page or a survey form, and you're just using all of the knowledge that you've gained on the previous sort of courses here, and you put them into these web design projects. And then if you've completed all 5 or 6, however many there are, for that particular curriculum, you then get a certificate, which I've obviously added to my LinkedIn. So when I was learning to code, obviously I didn't have any prior experience really, barely knew what an API was or anything like that. So yeah, all of these certificates I think sort of help the job search process. And of course, these little projects, if you wanted, could go on your portfolio, let's say, before you actually have other projects that you might have built yourself. So yeah, see, really good, certification, and it's quite a nice sort of feature for the site to offer that. I believe if you sort of pay a little bit of money, you can get a printed version as well if you perhaps want to frame it. But I just went with the online ones for now. And then, yeah, as you can see, they obviously recommend kind of going through them in a certain order, which makes sense to me. If you're sort of learning web development and front end, you then go to JavaScript, and then maybe onto a framework like React is over here. But of course, you can dip in and out, and I think I did have a look through some of these sort of information security and data analysis, and QA as well, quality assurance, and just sort of had a look at what they were teaching basically. And if it's worth learning, I'll for sure go through them. But yeah, the JavaScript curriculum was actually probably the best one for me. I found it really interesting, and obviously it was learning a lot about object-oriented and also functional programming, which is sort of, if you know JavaScript, it's really big, and good to learn. And of course ESX as well, which I think, since being released in 2015 is kind of the standard now. So obviously var and some sort of older sort of, I guess, methodologies or implementations of JavaScript. You kind of want to stay up to date with the latest standards. So certainly ESX Plus is what you'll be learning here. And of course, you get exposed to regex or regular expressions. Debugging was really good as well. And then actually what I like the best with these data structures and then these algorithms as well, these little problems where, you're trying to, I don't know, let's just have a look, reverse a string, for example, or factorialize a number. This is where you can really then sort of put your knowledge of the JavaScript language to then actually try and solve problems. And you're obviously sort of thinking how to break down a problem and, how I'm trying to solve each part with code, literally if they said it there. And I think that's probably the best way to learn. Certainly I think the time when JavaScript really clicked for me was when I was going through and doing all of these little scripts and problems, and some other ones as well, which we can maybe talk about in another video. But yeah, I certainly think little algorithms earlier on just sort of gets you into that mindset of sort of solving problems with code, no matter how trivial it is. Sort of falsy bouncer or title case a sentence, for example. How would you do that? And then once you can sort of use it going forward if you ever need that or come across that problem. So there's OOP and then functional, as I mentioned, and the difference between them. And then, yeah, there were some projects as well. So I think all of the curriculum have projects at the end. And of course, you'll need that to get your certificate. And I think then if I go to front-end development libraries, this is actually the one where I don't think I've actually completed it. So after sort of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, obviously you can sort of build very basic sites. But these days, a lot of sort of web frameworks and applications, you'll use, I guess, yeah, frameworks and libraries. So Bootstrap, for example, it's a sort of a CSS. It gives you pre-built styles and components. It's good to learn for sure. Maybe not to rely on. You still need that CSS knowledge underneath. But yeah, it's good to have. And actually, the same with jQuery as well. I sort of thought I wouldn't need to learn jQuery. It's sort of outdated. It was released in 2006. But actually, yeah, my work, we sort of have some jQuery lying around in sort of legacy apps, and it was good to go through this and sort of at least understand the syntax. And obviously, there's always the docs, and now I obviously learn or know a lot more about JavaScript, and then obviously jQuery as well. Having sort of had to use it from time to time. SAS is another good one. I think I actually learned SAS prior to taking this course, but it's only 9 lessons, so it's good to go through and just learn about some of the sort of the options that it gives you. But yeah, certainly recommend looking at SAS if you don't use that to write your CSS already. And then of course React and Redux, so that's sort of the state management for React. And then obviously you've got them together as well here. As I said, yeah, I haven't done these projects. I think by that point I was more just to learn Redux and React, and then build my own projects. And I think it might have actually been. I think I was sort of was learning React from other sources at that point. But I certainly think for the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and all that beginner stuff, that sort of takes a little while to go through, and you're learning a lot every single lesson. But I really do think it's worthwhile sort of going through the sort of the early stages of the freeCodeCamp curriculum. And of course, after that, there's all sorts of other stuff that you can look at. So if you perhaps prefer data visualization and bar charts or displaying data to the user, you can take that one, or the backend development and APIs. That looked quite interesting as well. Obviously NPM, and I think they work with Node and Express. So obviously I've used that now and sort of understand them. So I haven't felt the need to come back and take these courses, but certainly, let's say if I was working with MongoDB and Mongoose, yeah, I think probably the first port of call would be come back, go through these 12 sort of exercises, and then probably have a good sort of base level understanding of what it's about, and how I can work with it, perhaps offline, in an IDE rather than within their system. So yeah, I think overall freeCodeCamp really useful, certainly worth your while if you're learning sort of to code or web development specifically for these first three. Um, so as I mentioned earlier, the freeCodeCamp website is quite good to go through. So they kind of have longer form content, and you can see some of their courses are really quite popular. So 30 million for this Python course. You do just have to watch. Some of the stuff might be a few years old, but to be honest, they're kind of uploading sort of every other day, it seems, something new. And these are a lot of short courses as well. So 3 and a bit hours, almost 2 hours. I think their longest is almost like 24 hours or something crazy. But there's some long courses, and you can see I've watched a few of them. I dip in and out, or I sort of skip through and just learn the key points from each one, sort of as I need it. So then two more sites that I'll just recommend, and actually, or YouTube channels, I guess. And certainly I found this when I was going through the JavaScript curriculum. If I just pull up one, for example, yeah, let's just go through this, basic JavaScript. If perhaps you get stuck, you can obviously sort of get help here by getting a hint. They now have, I guess, watch a video. I don't know if they had that for all of them that I was looking at, or you can ask for help on the forum, I guess, as well. But if you perhaps wanted someone to really explain it, and maybe I didn't see this watch a video, or that wasn't available when I was running through it, I'm not sure. But I found there's two channels which have kind of gone through some of certainly the JavaScript curriculum really well, and it's good to almost have someone explain sort of what they're doing and how they're going to sort of come up with a solution to the problem, whatever it may be. Certainly for those sort of JavaScript, let's say algorithms or the data structures, certainly those algorithm scripting ones, and the beginner and advanced ones, really good to almost get a sort of two opposing views, oftentimes, because there's often more than one way to sort of code out a problem. If it's certainly with JavaScript, there's endless opportunities sometimes to come to the same answer and the same conclusion. So yeah, anyway, with those two channels, I came across What's Dev here. So if I go to the playlist, you can see they've got Learn JavaScript and the JavaScript coding challenges. These are from 2017, but actually he goes through them really quite well. It's quite detailed, and actually if I just click into one, just as an example, one solution, you might be coming sort of 8+ minutes, or even longer, just to look through sort of what the solution is, and then he sort of goes through the whole thing. So if I skip along, he has a sort of a similar setup here. Just let that load. But you can see, he's going through each line and just explaining everything related to that particular problem. So I found that really useful. And then the other one, funnily enough, is called Useful Programmer over here. So this guy, again, has sort of the playlists for all of these certifications, but really good to run through. And certainly some of the JavaScript stuff where I was getting stuck, as I said, on the algorithms side of things. Or even if I wasn't, if I was able to go through them, I would still almost just find out sort of an alternative solution and look through the different solutions and make sure I understand how it's all working and perhaps why as well, just to get that sort of a deeper understanding of each one. I have to say, yeah, for the JavaScript, I didn't just rattle through them, maybe like I did with the HTML and CSS. I really took my time to understand what the code was doing, each line by line almost. And sort of oftentimes, we come to the same conclusion, but have a different implementation. So that was certainly really good. So yeah, I'd recommend finding alternative resources to almost supplement your learning with freeCodeCamp. But certainly, by all means, there's a lot of courses, and there's obviously all the curriculums and tutorials they offer. So I think all in all, it's a great resource. If you're looking to learn to code, I'd certainly recommend starting here, and then see where you move on to. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my sort of overall review of freeCodeCamp. Sort of love what they're doing, and obviously being a non-profit and offering all of this information for free is really quite amazing. So, obviously a lot of companies charge for content, but yeah, I have to say to this day, I've never spent a penny on a course or anything. So it's all been open source or, I guess sort of creator driven content that I've benefited from. So hopefully I'm giving back a little bit here and, just giving my review. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've got any questions at all on freeCodeCamp. And I'd be more than happy to help, but I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.